Moving on to motion one, going to kick things off. Whereas an agenda was made and whereas we need to approve it, be it resolved that council approve the agenda of the council meeting of Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, as seen on the Engineering Society website. Moved by Thomas, no nickname, right? Seconded by Andrew, even sadder, I don't have a nickname, Vasila. Do we have an opening? Director Wright.
Yes, Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. First things first, I apologize to the speaker for forgetting the nicknames this week. I've got one amendment to the agenda, which is actually two amendments. Incoming Vice President Frost couldn't be here tonight, so the final two motions, which he was supposed to second, will be seconded by incoming Vice President Edwards. So I will just change that on the agenda really quick. Other than that, I do not have any other amendments or discussion.
Alrighty, is there any debate on the motion? Oh yeah, speaker's queue. Whoops. Anyways, seeing none, do you have a closing, Director Wright?
No.
Fantastic. In that case, be it resolved that council approve the agenda of the council meeting of Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, as seen on the Engineering Society website, moved by Thomas Wright, seconded by Andrew Vasila. You may now vote. Or not. There we go. You may now vote. Motion passes. Love to see it. All right, moving on to motion two. Whereas it's been some amount of time since the last council, and whereas Ilir wrote the minutes and they need to be approved, be it resolved the council approved the minutes of the council meeting of Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, as seen on the Engineering Society website. Moved by Thomas, still no nicknames right, seconded by Ilir Sadriak Gusija. Do either of the movers have an opening?
No.
All right. Is there any debate on the motion? Seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing?
No.
I point of information, Matthew Green, side 21 AMS rep. It does say February 3rd, 2021. I believe it is supposed to say March 3rd.
No. Direct response, Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. This is approving the minutes from the last council meeting.
My apologies.
Apology accepted. So do either of the movers have a closing?
No.
Did I read this already? Anyways, in that case, be it resolved the council approve the minutes of the council meeting of Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, as seen on the Engineering Society website, moved by Thomas Wright, seconded by Ilir Gusija. You may now vote. Fantabulous. Motion passes. Alrighty, moving on to speaker's business, which is my business. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge that Queens is situated on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. However, I personally at this point am based in Toronto and would like to as such acknowledge that the land on which I currently preside has been for thousands of years the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many individual peoples from across Turtle Island, and I am personally grateful to have the opportunity to work, learn, and play on this land. Particularly in a year that we are all spread across Canada, I think it's incredibly valuable for us to learn a little bit more about the land on which we're settled and the privileges on which it has offered us. And moving on a secondary note, I would just like to provide a quick shout out to International Women's Day on March 8th. The Gender and Engineering panel will be presenting a movie night, which is very exciting and worth recognizing. And I'd also like to give a special shout out to President Spencer Lee, as it is his birthday today, and I believe that deserves some recognition. So happy birthday, Spencer. I'd also like to congratulate all of our incoming director team. We are very excited to have you here at our first council. And, if you should you have any questions, please feel free to message Thomas, myself, or just ask outright. We don't bite. But that just about does it for me. So I believe we're now going to move into some presentations. First up, we will be moving into the bed fund purchases presentation. So I believe Chair or Manager Barnes James, you can take it away from here.
Hi, everyone. Thomas, I believe you're putting up my presentation.
I think you just put a message saying you're good to screen share, but.
Okay,
Sorry, I thought you were sharing it. Do you have it on hand or would you like me to pull it up?
I do. I'm sorry, Nick. Nick told me that, anyway, that's fine. Actually, could you do it? Do you mind?
I'll just have to find it really quick, but yes, I can pull that up.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Thomas, are we racing now or are you just going to do it?
I can take care of it. You got to watch the speaker's queue and everything, so.
I am so sorry. Nick told me you'd have it open.
No worries. I think Nick told me you'd have it open.
Nick!
No worries. Okay.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Does this work?
Oh my God. Thank you.
No
Yes. That's it. Okay, I'm gonna start then. Hi everyone, my name is Julia and I am the bed fund manager, and today I'm going to be presenting the summary of all of the proposed purchases from each discipline. Next slide, please. So bed fund has no correlation to Box Springs. It stands for Better Education Donation Fund, and it's a student-founded initiative that aims to purchase better lab equipment or software or any special education initiatives that the students feel will better their undergraduate education here at Queen's. Next slide. So the way the bed fund actually works behind the scenes is we accept donations from the representatives and all of the students. This year that was about $150,000, so thank you all. Then we divide the money between the disciplines and we give an elected representative from each discipline the opportunity to spend that money on a student desired initiative. Unspent money accumulates in the expendable fund until the manager decides to carry it forward into the endowed fund. And that interest is reinvested in the endowed fund until such a time as the endowed fund's annual interest will be able to support the annual purchases as well as grow the fund with inflation. Next slide. The bed fund strives to collect input from the student body, and this year that was through virtual idea generation surveys. The following proposals are the culmination of all of the hard work of my team and all of the representatives, and they've all done this year, so thank you so much. I am so excited to show their proposals. Let's get started. Starting with first year, Mod 1 requires students to use SolidWorks for their designs. Access to 6 VR headsets will provide 3D prototypes, which is a great way for students to visualize their projects. Representative Grace reached out to Professor Hungler, who agreed to use VR headsets in his class, and I think that is so cool. As well, Grace will be purchasing 12 laptops and 12 laptop bags. These laptops will be available to first-year engineering students to be loaned out during emergencies, such as when a laptop breaks before a test. And there's demand for this increasingly with online learning, as so many of the mandatory evaluations now take place on computers. This is just such a thoughtful purchase. Grace worked with the IT department to set up this service, and it was so thoughtful of her. Thank you so much, Grace. Moving on to EngChem, Representative Maddie worked with Dr. Poirier to find items that will improve the Dupuy Hall pilot plant lab. A circulating pump will improve the heat exchanger lab, as well as a computer and a monitor to improve data collection for their hydrogen fuel cell system, which is really cool. This is a great example of Representative Maddie working together with a professor. Thank you so much, Maddie. Moving on to Civil. Civil submitted the following lab equipment items. These items were actually chosen in collaboration with undergraduate civil design teams, such as concrete canoe and concrete toboggan. The goal of these items is to improve the accuracy of their results with higher consistency. Next, Serena actually came up with an incredibly creative idea, a textbook library in the civil engineering lounge. Serena took note that a lot of civil students wanted some kind of textbook bursary, as you know, they're expensive and therefore not accessible to everyone. So she went through and made a list of all of the textbooks required by every professor in the civil engineering department. And logistically, these textbooks are going to be available to students to read at their leisure in the civil lounge. On to Compelec. Compelec drew inspiration from civil. Serena did such a great job. They also propose purchasing textbooks that will support students academically and release any financial pressures. ECE decided to purchase 20 textbooks, at least one for every core class, and these items will be placed in a small bookshelf in the Bain lab. On to EngPhys. EngPhys is going to purchase 3 oscilloscopes. Can't say I knew what an oscilloscope was at the start of this year, but an oscilloscope is an electronic test instrument that graphically displays voltages on a 2-dimensional plot as a function of time. Thank you, Wikipedia. The additional oscilloscopes will improve the quality of the 253 experimental data. And this lab is most effective when all of the students are actually using the same model, and they're being discontinued next year. So we're going to buy 3 more. Thank you, Representative Eric. Moving on to geology. They have made such an innovative purchase this year. I am so proud. They are going to buy a Phantom 4 drone. So this specific model was chosen for its photogrammetry, which is the most important aspect in geological survey. Students actually already learn how to use drones in Geo 221, but they will be able to check out this drone for individual projects from the department. A drone can take a topographic model, track erosion, and gather data far more accurately than a satellite. Representative Rachel confirmed with the department that they will be taking care of this drone. Thank you so much for this exciting proposal, Rachel. On to mechanical. Mechanical has also taken the initiative to bring 21st century technology into the classroom. Representatives Sydney and Brad worked with professors Damond and Plogue. Strain measurement is essential to multiple labs in MEC, and currently strain measurements are being taken using calipers or strain gauges, and this technique is limited to flat systems. There is no capacity for visualization. A modern portable solution is a DIC system. So the above figure actually illustrates 2-dimensional strain in plastic deformation. The color variations show how the strain localizes, which is completely outside of the capabilities of a caliper. So 5 DIC units are going to be assembled. 4 of them are going to be 2-dimensional. 1 of them is going to be 3-dimensional, which is so cool. They will be built for core 2nd and 3rd year labs. In their proposal, they really went into detail about how with online learning, there's limitations to visualizing things, and just having this as an option for the professors will help explain visualization. This is a perfect example of professors working together with students to bring state-of-the-art technology into the online learning space. Thank you again to Representatives Sydney and Brad. On to mining. Mining requested a standing mixer for high viscosity fluids for flotation and leaching, as well as 2 bow saws that were requested for the Queen's International Mining Games team. This is just a reminder that we very much encourage our representatives to work with design teams that are associated with their discipline. So something to think about if you're part of a design team. In addition to these items, Representative Monica added a wish list of items that actually exceed this year's budget to make a peristatic pump consisting of a pump head, pump drive, and tubing, which together will show a mineral processing technique that separates ore from water. BedFund believes this is a reasonable purchase, and we intend to make this additional purchase for mining with money that remains in the expendable count. So thank you to Monica for taking the initiative to make such a detailed report this year. On to math, Apple Math. Survey feedback indicated that the priority during remote learning should be to equip professors with better material to deliver online classes, and as such, Representative Daniel is asking for a light board, as well as 2 packs of whiteboard markers for Jeffrey Hall. Thank you, Daniel. Last but not least, Representative Rashana worked with the Icons, who have agreed to store 20 Arduino kits in the ILC, and these Arduino kits will be available for all students in engineering to check out and use in the ILC, which is such a creative idea. As well, it was identified in our survey this year that the drill press in the ILC workshop is very difficult to use. So Rashana worked with the ILC manager, Simon Smith, to select a new and improved model. So thank you. Okay, here are the actuals compared to the final 2021 budget. Please keep in mind that the 2021 budget is somewhat inflated by the general fund that was actually a one-time $50,000 withdrawal. So overall, I am so proud of the discipline representatives. Particular shout out to Representative Grace, our first year representative, who has never set foot on campus and was still able to come up with 6 VR headsets. Blew my mind. Their hard work, these purchases are sure to make a lasting impact on the quality of undergraduate engineering labs. I would also, next slide, I would also like to say a quick thank you to my amazing team, Sarah and Hannah, who are here tonight to help me answer any questions. This year, on top of everything, we were able to put together a new proposal template that I'm sure contributed to all of these amazing proposals. As well, we made a website that's part of our ongoing goal to make BedFund more transparent and accountable. So next slide, if you have any questions about any of the proposals or about BedFund as a whole, please feel free to email us or message us, I guess, on Zoom now at these addresses that are on the screen now. I would strongly encourage anyone who is interested in the BedFund to apply to one of these positions. It's an amazing leadership opportunity. And I talked so fast. I hope you got all that. I believe it's time to answer some questions.
Thank you, Manager Barnes James. Don't worry, I didn't know what an oscilloscope was either, and I had to use it for 2 of my classes. Moving on to the speakers queue. First up, we have Senator Matthews. Or not.
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. Sorry, am I in the speakers queue?
Your name was in the speakers queue, actually, for both first and second, but
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why my name's in the speakers queue, but I didn't put it there.
Point of information, Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. I may have left it in there from last time by accident.
That was more enjoyable than I would have even liked. Next up, we have President Takamoto.
Sorry, point of information first, Peter, your name is in multiple discussion periods, so you might just want to go through and check them. Okay, Julia Takamoto, Psi 22 President. Just looking at the elec and civil purchases for the textbooks.
Yes.
Presumably those are going to end up in the discipline lounges. Is there any plan to make those accessible in another format for students, considering all of the virtual learning and like the lounges are shut down right now?
Yeah, online. So
yeah.
One thing is that BedFund purchases get implemented a year after they're purchased. So they won't be up this year. Hopefully next year we'll have access. We'll see. There's a bit of a copyright issue when it comes to making them accessible online, because the number of times that it's shared and who has access to it, that's something that students would have to pay for. And sort of the reasoning behind this was to release financial pressure. So sadly, currently there are no plans to make them accessible online, only the hard copies that will be accessible in Bain for ECE and the student lounge for civil that's in, I don't know what building it's in. I'm in civil. Anyway, there you go. I hope that helped.
Ellis.
Ellis, oh my God, thank you. I've been way too long since coming to Kingston.
Thank you very much. We have no further questions in the speaker's queue. I'm just going to give a quick 5 seconds, see if anyone wants to add their name in there, have a follow-up. Seeing none, I want to say thank you again to Manager Barnes-James and her team. It was a fantastic presentation, and I believe we have a motion on it later in the council, but thank you very much.
If you think of any questions, email any of us.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Moving on to our second presentation of the evening on endorsement policy.
Good evening, everyone. Julia Newcomb, Director of Social Issues. I'm here with Thomas tonight to talk about the issue of endorsements with outside groups and initiatives. So for some background, yes, let's change, yes. Okay, QBAC, which is Queens Backing Against Climate Change, approached me around December asking if I wanted to work with them on a mental health initiative that they're working on. So for those of you who don't know, the mental health services at Student Wellness are not ideal. If you want to see a counselor, you have to call in at 8 or 8:30 the morning of the day you want your appointment, and you're not guaranteed to get one. So it's a very stressful system currently, and just not great. So the goals of QBAC's initiative are to create an online booking system for students, so students could book in advance and also not have to call in. So removing some of the stress that's created by calling in for an appointment. Ending sweepstakes and prioritization care. This is pretty much the same as the third point here, refocusing care to ongoing treatment, but making it so any student who wants mental health resources or access to a counselor can talk to a counselor without them being directly in crisis at that moment. So having ongoing mental health care rather than just crisis counseling. So obviously some great initiatives that could really benefit students throughout the university. Short term, they're looking at a media campaign, which started in January with Bell Let's Talk Day. Moving on from there, they're going to try and do some data collection, and then long-term using the data they've collected to create a proposal to the university for better mental health services for students. So obviously we don't have a process currently for endorsements, and this with QBAC asking this year for an endorsement, Thomas and I thought that we should have another discussion about what endorsements are, which is an act of giving one's public approval or support to someone or something. So obviously a fairly vague statement right there, but talking about what endorsements could look like within the scope of our society and how we could implement that.
All right, thanks, Julia. As Director Newcomb sort of left off there, this approaching from QBAC sort of exposed this hole in EngSoc where we don't have any sound policy or procedure in place for attaching our name as an endorsement to any sort of external group or initiative. So off the bat, I want to stress that this presentation or the subsequent discussion period that we'll have doesn't concern QBAC, their stance on climate change, or their work with mental health and student wellness services. This is strictly to discuss how we should move forward with the idea of EngSoc endorsing external groups or initiative. So a big concern is creating such a relationship without sound policy and regulation could do more harm than good to the society. So we feel that concrete steps should be established for endorsement if any action is to be taken in this manner. So obviously we've got a bit of a fork in the road here. So we could either go down the path of no endorsements, where we establish in our governing documents that the Engineering Society doesn't attach its name to external groups for the purposes of advocating for external issues. This follows existing precedent where the Society has not endorsed bodies in the past, mainly because we don't have sound procedure for it. There's also the path where we open ourselves up to endorsements. Thorough policy will need to be created to protect our interests and determine what an endorsement is. And an advantage of this is that groups can leverage the student body to advocate for change where they see fit. So a possible solution that myself and Julia, in work with other members of the director team, have sort of come to is establishing this sound procedure for the Engineering Society to voice a stance on issues related to Queen's engineering students, be that directly or indirectly. And a big help to us when trying to visualize what this would look like is the AMS's Principles and Positions Policy, which they just passed a couple of months ago. This is a document that outlines the AMS's stance on a number of issues. It's very short and to the point. It's a quick introduction followed by a list of issues, each with at the most 4 subpoints outlining where they stand on it and how they advocate for it. So this possible solution would involve writing policy that outlines the Engineering Society's advocacy positions on a variety of issues rather than specific groups. The reason we specify this is because voicing support of an initiative protects the Engineering Society's interests more than voicing support of a group as a whole. This type of document would be up for review by council periodically, and of course, like any other governing document, up for amendment by council at any time. And the main advantage of this is the fact that it builds a foundation off of which the executive can act quickly when the society feels it should advocate on an issue. So yeah, these advantages and disadvantages sort of came up in the presentation, but to sum up, an advantage of establishing an endorsement procedure would mean that EngSoc can leverage its influence in the interest of its membership. Obviously, it's good to have a means of taking a stand on important issues, and it gives EngSoc another avenue to support groups whose actions benefit those of engineering students. Some disadvantage, EngSoc could take responsibility for the actions of some groups we endorse, whether that's positive or negative, and some students in the society may not support specific endorsements. So what we wanted to ask council is, should the Engineering Society endorse external groups and or initiatives? What should be included in policy? Is policy necessary? As well as what should define our scope of an endorsement? So I'd like to open up the floor to any questions about the presentation right now. If you have statements to be made, voicing your opinion, then save them for the discussion period, please.
Yeah, so again, just to reiterate Thomas's Director Wright's point, there are both the discussion period and the questions pertaining to the presentation. Please place your name where appropriate. First things first, Vice President-elect Edwards.
Yeah, just a quick question. When we're talking about initiatives, is that, I guess, what does that cover? Like specific actions of specific groups, or like, for example, there's some projects that span multiple groups. So.
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. We word it as supportive initiatives. So like that's a means of saying that we don't endorse groups as a whole. So we wouldn't use our endorsement to say EngSoc supports this group and everything that they do. We could say EngSoc is supporting this initiative that is run by this group. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Oh. Thanks, Kaya. Seeing no further questions, I'm going to give us 5 more seconds and then we'll dive into the discussion period. All right. With no further questions, I'll now entertain statements and opinions pertaining to the topic at hand, not just questions. And first on the list would be Senator Matthews.
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. In my opinion, yes, the Engineering Society should have the ability to endorse initiatives. Part of the Engineering Society's role is to advocate for engineering students. We already advocate to the faculty about different changes we want within our own faculty, and we advocate to the university. So being able to endorse initiatives by other groups is just another way for us to advocate for our own students. And to the point that not all students might agree with the initiatives we endorse. EngSoc Council is an elected body. We're elected to represent the students of the Engineering Society. And so if EngSoc Council develops and approves a comprehensive policy on endorsements, then that is essentially doing our job. I mean, in politics, whether they are like national politics or just the politics of a student government, not every single individual will 100% agree on everything, but our job is to represent the engineering students as best as we can and as we are elected to do. So yes, in summary, yes, I support making an endorsement policy.
All right, next up, Vice President-elect Edwards.
Kai Edwards, Vice President-elect. I 100% agree with what Peter said. I think that being able to endorse initiatives, I would be careful with groups that are not ratified underneath the Engineering Society, but to support initiatives by groups external to our EngSoc and groups that advocate on behalf of all students at Queen's, I think that that's a really important thing to be able to do. And I think that, we have such a large platform when it comes to our student body, as well as our power within the faculty and within the university as a whole. We are a very organized student government. And I think that a lot of these initiatives could benefit from support from our organization. And I think that, as a group representing the student body, that we have a duty to, be able to advocate for issues that impact our students. So I think when it comes to making a policy, I think that we need to be transparent with the groups that we are supporting their initiatives in terms of what that means. So it should be very clear to them what it means when we are supporting them, and kind of in what capacity. Because obviously you don't want to get the confusion with supporting an entire group that is not ratified in the Engineering Society, because we could run into some issues. So that is all I have to say on that. So I hope that's helpful.
Since we have reached the end of the speakers queue, I'd like to ask if either of the presenters have a closing.
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. Thank you, incoming Vice President Edwards and Senator Matthews, for your input. If anyone has any further discussion about this, this is something that Julia and I will be working on closing out the year and hopefully passing to the new team for further work. So we're always around if you have any more questions or suggestions.
All right, thank you, Director Newcomb and Director Wright. With that being said, that concludes our presentations and associated discussion period. And we'll now move on to new business, starting with an election in motion 3. Whereas Sci22 Frosh does not have a faculty board rep right now, and whereas we need one, and whereas we can elect them at council in accordance with bylaw 3, section J.3. Be it resolved that council elect blank as the new Sci22 faculty board rep for the 2020-2021 academic year. Moved by Julia B. COVID safe Takamoto, seconded by Peter wear an official Sci22 mask Matthews. Do either of the movers have an opening?
Julia Takamoto, Sci22 Pres. So just a little bit of background on this. Our faculty board rep for the year had to step down just because her evening classes conflicted with both council and faculty board meetings. So she could not attend any of them. And we just haven't had, we've been advertising the position for a while and we haven't had a ton of interest up until recently. So we decided that it would be a lot of time and effort to host a proper by-election to elect one position. So in accordance with bylaw, we're going to do it at council now. And the position has been advertised for a few weeks now. So there has been ample notice for anyone interested to come forward and attend council today.
Alrighty, we will, I guess we're not depending, we will now entertain nominations for the position. Please use this, please use the speaker's queue again for nominations. I do see a hand raise. If we need it, we can do it, but Senator Matthews.
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. I'll make 2 nominations. I would like to nominate Nick Merton and also, if he is here, Adam Fell.
I'll second both of them.
Hi, I'm Adam Fell. I'm the incoming director of conferences as well. Sorry, I'm actually no longer interested in running for the position, so I will remove myself if that is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, incoming Director Fell. And Representative Merton, do you accept the nomination?
Hello, Nick Merton, general member right now. Yes, I do.
Outstanding. Do we have any further nominations? I see Vice President-elect Edwards.
I nominate Andrew Vassala.
I respectfully am not a member of Sci22 and cannot hold another voting position, as we recently discussed and will confirm later this council, so I will respectfully decline, though I appreciate your enthusiasm. And then Member Merton, I saw that you'd raised your hand earlier. Otherwise, you can yield your time.
Yeah, sorry, I just wasn't really sure of the nomination process. So yes, I yield my time.
Oh, good. Thank you, Member Merton. Do we have any further nominations? Alrighty, so to confirm, we have Nick Merton running for the position, and so we will now take questions. We will now entertain questions, and those can be placed in the second or third time column should anyone have questions to ask our candidate. But we can start with if either of our movers have a question. President Takamoto.
Julia Takamoto, Sci22 Pres. As the faculty board rep, you are expected to represent the interests of Sci22 at board meetings and at council, particularly considering our whole virtual learning situation. How will you make sure that you're accurately representing all of Sci22?
Hi, thank you for the question. So I do have some experience, some similar experience for the past, well, since May, I've served as the elected academic representative for the computer engineering program. And so that has involved working with students rather than across disciplines in 1 year, across years in one discipline to make sure that all their concerns are heard both by their individual professors and also by the department at large, and in sitting on department meetings, on committees thereof, and so forth. And I've had varying levels of success in shaping department policy and in ensuring student voices are heard at the department level through that position. So I plan to basically continue that, switching axes, and keep an eye on what the conversation is, and remain in contact with people across the disciplines within Sci 2 to make sure that I'm hearing all sides of what's going on in our faculty.
Thank you for your question, President Takamoto, and for your response, Member Merton. Senator Matthews, you are next in the queue.
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. Why do you think it's important for students to sit on faculty board?
Thank you, Senator Matthews, for the question. I think it's really important because the faculty board is responsible for a lot of things within the faculty, both like ranging from budgeting across the departments to faculty-wide policy on academics and on everything else the faculty touches in student life. And that affects a lot of things. I mean, both on the academic side, like how courses are run and so forth, and also the faculty supports design teams and has all sorts of other initiatives that they run. And I think it's very important that students have a voice in the decision-making body that's ultimately responsible for all of those activities to make sure that the priorities and interests of students are preserved through that decision-making process.
Thank you, Senator Matthews and Member Merton. I will entertain up to one more question should anyone have one. All right, Senator Matthews, why not?
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. Yes, I have one more question. What skills and experience would you bring to the position?
Nick Merton, General Member. Thank you for that question. Yeah, as I mentioned, I do have the experience as the academic representative for computer engineering, which, just to give a bit of a more thorough idea, I'm on the ECE discipline executive through that, and I sit as a voting member on until the end of this semester on the department meetings of the ECE department, and non-voting on the curriculum committee of the ECE department. And I also have a range of other sort of leadership and governance experience. I am a former president of a design team, and which I co-founded previously. And so I have plenty of experience in dealing with the faculty and whatnot through that. And yeah, so I think I have a range of applicable experience. Thank you.
Thank you again to Senator Matthews and Member Merton. With that being said, we will now move into an election. I'm going to let Thomas defer to how exactly we want to keep the confidence side of things. I think we're going to do a Zoom poll.
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. I've got a poll set up in Zoom. So voting members, please vote on this poll.
Yeah, and remember, this is a vote of confidence for Member Merton's appointment to the Sci 2 faculty board representative position. You may now vote. And motion passes. Vote passes. Election successful. Much confidence. Very elect. In that case, thank you to Member Merton. Do either of our movers have a closing?
Thank you so much for coming and running for the position. And shout out to Thomas for letting us know this was an option also. Very helpful in the planning phases. That's it.
Thank you, President Takamoto. In that case, be it resolved that Council-elect Nick Merton as the new Psi 22 Faculty Board Rep for the remainder of the 2020-2021 academic year, moved by Julia Takamoto, seconded by Peter Matthews. You may now vote. And motion passes. Outstanding. Moving on to motion number 4. Whereas the bed fund just presented their purchase proposals for the year, and whereas these proposals require council approval, be it resolved the council approve the bed fund proposed purchases for the 2020-2021 year. Moved by Julia Bedhead Barnes James, seconded by Nick Morning Shower Arnott. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Manager Barnes James. We will now entertain debate on the motion. Motion 4. Seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing?
Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Manager Barnes James.
And thank you to all my representatives. You did a great job. There you go.
Shout out to the bed fund team. Be it resolved, the council approve the bed fund proposed purchases for the 2020-2021 year, moved by Julia Barnes James, seconded by Nick Arnott. You may now vote. And motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Julia. If you want, you can stick around, otherwise you can drop off. Alrighty, so thank you to our bed fund manager and apparently a squeaky clean Director Arnott. Moving on to motion 5, whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced the day-to-day operations of design teams, and whereas policy changes must be made to ensure their survival and success in future years, be it resolved that council approve the changes made to policy section Gamma.B as seen in appendix help design, moved by Craig, we love policy, Maslin, seconded by Liam, we love design, Murray. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Craig Maslin, Director of Human Resources. This is a pretty simple policy change. We're basically just keeping with the precedent that was set with some of the service head manager positions. We're just basically allowing design team captains to do their role again next year in the event that they're unable to fulfill their duties due to circumstances beyond their control. Essentially, just a lot of the design teams were worried about their success next year with people not really knowing what's going on, and this will help them succeed.
Oh, am I still muted? No, I'm not. Outstanding. We will now entertain debate on the motion. Motion 5. Seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
No.
Alrighty, outstanding. In that case, be it resolved, the council approve the changes made to policy section Gamma.B as seen in appendix help design, moved by Craig Maslin, seconded by Liam Murray. You may now vote. And motion passes. Moving on to motion number 6, whereas design team captain hiring policy has been obscure, and whereas policy should respect successful practices in place. Be it resolved, the council approve the changes made to policy section Gamma B, as seen in appendix more help for design, moved by Craig more help Maslin, seconded by Liam more love Murray. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Yes, Craig Maslin, Director of Human Resources. I'd like to make a amendment to the motion. I just forgotten to add something when I submitted it, and I'm not exactly sure what the practice is, Thomas, or Speaker Vasla, if you'd clarify.
Point of information, Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. So since Director Maslin is the mover of this motion, he can make an amendment and see it as friendly, which means we don't have to debate the amendment. It just automatically gets added to the motion. And for context, the document on the right is the original appendix. Document on the left is the amended appendix.
Thank you, Director Wright. So essentially, this piece of policy just kind of updates policy to keep in the times with what has been practiced within design teams. Traditionally, a lot of design team captain and executive positions are more often chosen through a democratic process than our traditional hiring policy for most engineering society positions. The design teams have found this to be a pretty successful practice, as it keeps experienced members in leadership roles while allowing for more inexperienced members to still gain valuable experience in the design team and kind of work their way up into more senior roles. This is what's been done the last, what seems like, at least 5 years plus. And finally, we have some policy in to reflect those practices.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Obviously, as Director Wright noted, that those amendments would be seen as friendly, and the changes are noted on the screen. We will now open debate on the motion in pink. And seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing?
No.
Fantastic. In that case, be it resolved that Council approve the changes made to policy section Gamma B as seen in Appendix More Help for Design, moved by Craig Maslin, seconded by Liam Murray. You may now vote. Motion passes. And thank you to our two directors, Maslin and Murray, for designing that policy. Motion 7, whereas there should be an international student representative on equity team to support and advocate for international students within our society, and whereas policy needs to reflect that, be it resolved the Council approve changes to policy section Beta C as seen in Appendix International Student Position, moved by Jeevan, Eat Smarty, Salvaraja, seconded by Julia, Drink Pasta Water, Newcomb. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Yes, Jeevan Savaraja, incoming Director of Social Issues. So one of my portfolio goals for DOSI is to provide more support for international students within the engineering society and community. So I see it as beneficial to the equity team to hire an international student representative to support such initiatives.
Outstanding. We will now entertain any debate on the motion. Also in pink. I'm liking the transition. Seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing? I'm going to assume that to be a no. Be it well, in that case, be it resolved that Council approve changes to policy section Beta C as seen in Appendix International Student Position, moved by Jeevan Salvaraja, seconded by Julia Newcomb. Almost there. Little more. And motion passes. Moving on to motion number 8, whereas we have a new speaker. Hello, and whereas deputies shouldn't have to give up their vote at council when they replace a speaker. Be it resolved that council approve the second reading of the changes to bylaw 1-Engineering Society Council as seen in appendix trustee deputy. Moved by Thomas, I'm a deputy, Wright, seconded by Andrew, I deputize, Vassala. Do either of the movers have an opening?
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. Just a reminder that council passed the first reading of this bylaw at the last council. And since it's bylaw, it has to pass through 2 readings.
Outstanding. Now we will entertain any debate on this motion. I will say council could get real interesting if this doesn't work out. However, seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
No.
Fantastic. In that case, be it resolved that council approve the second reading of the changes to bylaw 1-Engineering Society Council, as seen in appendix trustee deputy. Moved by Thomas Wright, seconded by Andrew Vassala. You may now vote. And motion passes. Well, that was much faster than my full-time job offer. Moving on to motion 9, whereas the position of Director of Internal Affairs no longer exists, and whereas that title still appears in policy and duties under the governance portfolio. Be it resolved that council approve the second reading of the changes of the Engineering Society bylaw manual as seen in appendix RIP_IA. Moved by Thomas, governance is the game, Right, seconded by Alex, governance is the game, Kosh Vitsialis. Do either of our movers have an opening? Eeny, meeny, miny, no. Thomas, you're muted.
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. It should say bylaw for that motion in the preamble, but you get the idea. Same thing as the last motion. It has to go through second reading.
Absolutely. We will now entertain debate on the motion. Motion 9. Oh, so fine. Seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing?
No.
Alrighty, in that case, be it resolved that council approve the second reading of the changes to the Engineering Society bylaw manual as seen in appendix RIPIA. Moved by Thomas Wright, seconded by Alex Kosh Vitsialis. You may now vote. And motion passes. We're going for the record here. And moving on to motion 10, double digits. Whereas the Engineering Society software development team definitely exists, and whereas bylaw doesn't think so, and it must be clarified. Be it resolved, the council approve the second reading of the changes to bylaw 8, section B2, as seen in appendix, and then there was SDEV, moved by Alex, bylaw gaslighting McKinnon, seconded by Ben, bylaw LED lighting Zurichni. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Yeah, Ben Zurichni, Vice President of Operations. Alex couldn't be here, but basically this is just saying that the IT team is actually the SDEV team and the IT operations team, just making it more specific and to reflect what's actually happening.
Fantastic. So into motion 10, we will now open up any and all debate on the motion. However, seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
No.
Alrighty then. Be it resolved that council approve the second reading of the changes to bylaw 8, section B2, as seen in appendix, and then there was SDEV, moved by Alex McKinnon, seconded by Ben Zurichni. You may now vote. And motion passes. Moving on to motion number 11, whereas there are many design teams in EngSoc, and whereas some of them aren't listed in policy. Be it resolved, the council approve the changes to policy section Funky K, B 1.4 as seen in appendix, teams of EngSoc. Moved by Liam, this list is wrong, Murray. Seconded by Alex, let's fix that list, Kosh Fitzialis. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Liam Murray, Director of Design. Basically, this is just small fixes to the list that's in policy to make sure that all the teams that are actually ratified through EngSoc are listed under policy, so you can just see the red highlights of the changes.
Alrighty, thank you, Director Murray. With that being said, we will now open up any debate on the motion. To address a few recent messages. Yes, I'm an apple. Yes, I don't. Yes, I hate it. Yes, I don't know the Greek alphabet. But seeing no debate, do either of our movers have a closing?
No.
All right. Be it resolved that council approve the changes to policy section Kappa B.4 as seen in appendix teams of EngSoc. Moved by Liam Murray, seconded by Alex Kosh Fitzialis. You may now vote. And motion passes. Moving on to motion 12. Whereas there are many design teams in EngSoc, and whereas some of them aren't listed in bylaw, be it resolved the council approve the changes to bylaw section 10.h as seen in appendix teams of EngSoc bylaw. Moved by Liam Murray, seconded by Liam, this list is also wrong, Murray. Seconded by Alex, let's fix that list too, Kosh Fitzialis. Do either of the movers have an opening?
Liam Murray, Director of Design. So this is essentially the exact same motion as before. This is just for bylaw, whereas the last one was policy. So just making sure that the list of teams is correct.
Fantastic. We will now entertain any debate on the motion. Seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
No.
Alrighty, in that case, be it resolved that council approve the changes to bylaw section 10.h as seen in appendix teams of EngSoc bylaw. Moved by Liam Murray, seconded by Alex Kosh Fitzialis. You may now vote. And motion passes. Proud to have many new friends now in policy. Moving on to motion 13. Whereas new design teams want to be formed, and whereas we want the design teams to be self-sufficient before being ratified, be it resolved that council approve the changes to policy section Kappa B.2.1 as seen in appendix radical ratify. Moved by Liam for the people, Murray. Seconded by Alex, even more people, Kosh Fitzialis. Do either of our movers have an opening?
Liam Murray, Director of Design. So I just added a line at the bottom of this saying that there should be 20 people like on the design team before they get ratified under us. This is something that's kind of been upheld anyways. I just wanted to put it into policy to make sure that if anyone wants to be a team, they know that they have to be self-sufficient and like operating properly before they can just be ratified underneath us.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Director Murray. We will now entertain any debate on the motion. However, seeing none, do either of the movers have a closing?
Nope.
All good. In that case, be it resolved that council approve the changes to policy section Kappa B.2.1 as seen in Appendix Radical Ratify, moved by Liam Murray, seconded by Alex Kosh-Fitziaus. You may now vote. Motion passes. Alrighty, moving on to motion 14. Whereas we need to address the problem of affiliated group debt and how to combat it, and whereas we need a more concrete way of dealing with these situations. Be it resolved that council approve the changes to policy section theta, I knew that one, financial policies as seen in appendix affiliated group debt. Moved by Salma, wanted debt. Ibrahim, moved by Ben, or alive. Zurichni.
Hi, Director of Finance, Salma Ibrahim. Can I share my screen actually? Is that okay?
Point of information, is it just for the appendix?
Yeah, just for the appendix, just so I can control where I'm going, because you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Can you guys wait? Hold on. I feel like I shared the wrong thing. Can you guys see the Word file?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I made an amendment to the appendix to this policy, and I informed the director of governance. It's just here and here, so nothing too crazy. It's just that. So this one's going to be a doozy, so bear with me here as I explain this. So all of this is pretty much just spelling, grammar, organization, minor corrections, nothing too crazy. Just three main things I wanted to point out is they exclude like as of right now, discipline clubs and year execs are excluded from submitting a budget, which shouldn't be the case. Everyone should submit a budget, and they do submit a budget. So I just kind of corrected that. And then some more accountability corrections, like as of right now, it says finance officers need to update each group's budget for them, which I don't think makes sense. Each group has a treasurer whose job is to do that. So if I have to update each and every single group's budget, I would never actually get any work done. And they need to be able to stay on top of and keep track of their own finance. And that's why we give them finance training. So those are just the important things. And currently, as it stands, policy dictates that if a group has been like non-operational and they have some like remaining funds, basically it just goes as a source of revenue in the next year's operating budget. And that doesn't really make sense because that money is not actually like a source of revenue. It's just kind of there. So it doesn't really make sense to act like it's like money that we're getting, because it's not. So I just kind of changed it to deal with it the same way we deal with our like what is it, like the remaining funds from like our operational budget. What we basically do is we take 50% of that and put that into our retained earnings. And if a group is not operational and they don't and they have any remaining funds in their account, that should just be put into retained earnings as well. Okay, so now for the fun part, that's actually the important part. I'm going to start by giving an analogy to help kind of explain the need for this policy. So sometimes when companies sell a product or a service, they do so for their clients on credit. So they give their client the product or the service expecting to receive the payment later. Sorry. EngSoc finance is essentially modeled in excuse me. EngSoc finance is essentially modeled in the same way. I'm so sorry. Just give me a sec.
All good, Director Ibrahim.
EngSoc finance is modeled in the same way. In order for groups to make their money, they kind of need to spend money first. For example, if a design team has to like buy materials in order to compete in like a competition, and in that competition, they'll receive a prize, for example. So essentially what we're doing is lending them money, and with the expectation that that money would be returned to us by the end of the year. And the problem with this is that there has been some like mismanagement of this and a lack of understanding of how the system actually works, and that causes for there to be a buildup of debt that never actually gets paid off. And for some groups, this debt has been building up for years and years, to the point where it's impossible for them to realistically pay it back. And so year over year, groups have been having trouble running their events or things that they provide to students because they have a huge negative amount in their account. And on top of that, every year people feel like it's not their their responsibility, that the people before them have been bringing the group into debt, or that like 5 years ago they had a poor management one time, and that way the debt just kind of kept piling on and they never were able to resolve that. So at this point, it's just a cycle, and it kind of just needs to stop. And right now, all it's doing is creating a burden on these groups that have this negative, and making all our like financial books look like such a mess. And so we need to fix it so that we have a cleaner set of books, cleaner set of records, which is good for pretty much everything, for organization purposes. If we ever need to transition a bookkeeper, it's not like a crazy process because the bookkeeper can just look at our books and understand what's going on. For tax, CRA purposes, everything. It's important to keep our books clean. And so it's important to note that at this point, this is money that has already gone and it's left our account and it's just left the building. This money is not like coming back, okay? So it's an expense that came out of our account, and because it's an expense that's as a result of debt, the accounting term for this expense is called bad debt expense. And so the way regular companies usually deal with this is that they have certain accounting methods that they use. They may have like a certain timeline that they use, and if they don't get their money back from a client by that certain deadline or whatever, then they'll write off the debt as a bad debt expense, or they have certain like processes, professional like accounting things that they basically do to deal with bad debt expenses, because the longer the client doesn't pay, the less likely they are to get their money back. And we're essentially in the same situation. Writing off bad debts is an accounting procedure that is under the Canadian Generally Accepted Accounting Procedures, which is what the Engineering Society follows. And because it's part of these standards, most companies don't even really like include a bad debt policy in their policies because it's a standard accounting procedure. And so because we're students and we're not professionals, I think it's a really good idea to have a concrete definition of the process and the way to deal with these situations. And that's why, with the help of Jino Lee, Ben and Jay and Liam, this policy was created last year, and we kind of worked on that and developed it and made it like better, so that it can help us kind of define for years and years to come what the director of finance or the vice president of operations needs to do in a certain situation where there's a group that has a negative, basically. And so this policy just outlines, the start basically is outlining essentially the terms that I just defined to you. And then it defines how the director of finance and VP Ops has to deal with a group that has gone into a negative balance for longer than 6 months. So like by the end of the year, if they have a negative and they haven't paid that back, not as a result of like their operational expenses, the process will be that they will meet with that group and develop a repayment plan for those groups to be able to repay that money back again. The earlier we catch this, the easier it is to not build that up, and so it won't be debilitating in the future for certain groups. And depending on the agreement that the director of finance and the VP Ops came to, if those deadlines aren't being met or the group isn't actually repaying it, obviously depending on the situation, then they will be open to some consequences, obviously, because we shouldn't stand for that. At the end of the day, all the money that we're spending and all the money that these groups are spending are student funds. And so if students' funds are being exploited, obviously we need to stop that. And so this can come in the form of a de-ratification motion for that group. And so that outlines the repayment plan and also the potential for de-ratification. And depending on the agreement and specific situation of the group, the exec can give the group permission essentially to get some debt relief. If they're asking for over $1,000 of debt relief, then they will need to bring this as a motion to council, obviously. And they may need to explain their situation for council approval, and they should receive whatever, and why they should receive whatever amount in debt forgiveness that they're asking for. And then these repayment plans will be part of their yearly transition between Director of Finance, and it must be disclosed to the incoming leadership of that group. So if there is a group that now has a repayment plan, the incoming team for the next year has to be aware of that repayment plan, and the incoming Director of Finance will meet with them and ensure that that transition is kind of happening, so that the repayment plan isn't just kind of forgotten about and out the window. So VPSA, VP Ops, and Director of Finance can also collaborate to decide if groups that have debts older than 3 years need to have that debt written off, whether that's because the group is not operational or it doesn't have the capability of repaying old debt that's really old and just is not going to come back. There's that also way for us to clean up our books, just like we mentioned before, how companies kind of just do that regularly when they have outstanding balances that aren't going to be repaid. There's also obviously some disclosure requirements. Of course, in the policy that if anything is written off, it needs to be disclosed to council, like the next council. And so that's pretty much it. I'll be open to taking any questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Ibrahim, for a really thorough and great analysis there. Moving into, we will now entertain debate on the motion. First on the speaker's queue would be Director CO.
Ryan CO, Director of Clubs and Conferences. So with regards to this motion, I'm in complete support of it, just because within the clubs and conferences world, traditionally, especially within conferences, financial accountability has been non-existent through years past, to nobody's fault. And what happened was, again, it was a cycle of people just inheriting really, really bloated amounts of debts and having no real ways to pay it off, and then, pending de-ratification, all that stuff. So from the perspective of encouraging student involvement, and also encouraging financial accountability, which has also been kind of addressed in my transition manual, making sure that finances are always in order by constant check-ins and communicating with the finances, the Director of Finances ongoing, and the finance officers. This motion would help our clubs and conferences greatly to ensure that, if there are financial emergencies, that they do have room to fall back on from years past of positive revenue generation. This year will mark the second year in a row that all conferences that are ratified within the Engineering Society will go positive or break even in terms of expenditures. So in keeping that trend up and making sure that there are measures in place to kind of allow them to start anew would be amazing for them. Yeah.
Thank you, Director CO. Special guest appearance from Vice President Emeritus Lee.
Wait.
You can go.
Can people see me? How does this work? Okay, hold up. I'm just gonna turn off my video. Sorry, guys. Hi, everyone. It's generally advisory board finance chair, as well as speaking as the previous vice president of operations that helped Salma and Ben come up with this policy. I think it's important to note that the importance of this policy isn't focusing on burning the groups with consequences of de-ratification. It's actually about financial accountability, as Brian said. And then also the importance of not wasting students' money that should go to the correct places on mistakes from previous mismanagement by all of these affiliated groups. So I just wanted to highlight that this is not to burden anyone, as Salma said. This is to make Engineering Society for better and to hold ourselves accountable for the student dollars we collect. That's all. Bye, guys. Love y'all.
I love you too, Vice President Emeritus Lee. Are there any further notes in the speaker's queue? We have reached the end presently. Alrighty, seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
Yeah, I agree with what Ben and Brian and Jano said. Essentially, this is just to ensure that like our groups have a fresh start and that they aren't not knowing what to do and kind of lost if they just go into their position and they just see a negative whatever amount in their account and they just don't know where to start. It's a good starting point for us to kind of change the way everything is going. And throughout my time as director of finance, I made sure to improve our financial training and our just in general our communication with the groups, and especially financial training, because that's where groups know that how they need to budget, how they need to ensure that they're not running a deficit for the year. Just by doing that and giving them a fresh start, they won't even need, hopefully they won't even need to have a repayment plan ever. The goal isn't to have repayment plans or to have to de-ratify anyone. The goal is to give people a way to be stable in their finances, spend student funds responsibly. And yeah, that's all for me.
Thank you, Director Ibrahim, for a very cash money motion. With that being said, be it resolved that Council approve the changes made to policy section theta, financial policies, as seen in appendix affiliated group debt, moved by Salma Ibrahim, seconded by Ben Zurichni. You may now vote. Just like one more, please. Motion passes. Alrighty, moving on to motion 15. Whereas the position of Director of Internal Processes is still evolving, and whereas the Director of Internal Processes needs help, be it resolved that Council approve the changes to the Engineering Society Policy Manual section beta.c.14 and gamma.a.2.1, as seen in appendix more people, to introduce a automation and process development team under the Director of Internal Processes. Moved by Evan, if a dog chews shoes, whose shoes does he choose? Ray, seconded by Kaya. Andrew's gonna love pronouncing that, Edwards. Do either of the movers have an opening?
Yes. Evan Ray, Side 22 AMS rep. I'm also the incoming Director of Internal Processes. So a lot of the role was put in place last year. Given that it was online, a lot of the role wasn't able to actually function, especially the automation and process development side. So I'm looking to add this into policy such that I can hire a team at the end of this year for next year that will work on exactly that, automation and process development. So the major thing that I put in policy is that this team will basically identify efficiency gaps in society operations. They're going to leverage the Microsoft Power Platform basically to develop and automate processes that we find that are issues. And then from there, they will provide sort of training and then using these systems such that if we make them, there's going to be necessary training for the groups that are using them. Otherwise, it'll never actually grasp. These groups won't actually use them. Yeah, so this is just making those changes to policy, and then bylaw will be the next motion.
Thank you, Representative / incoming Director Ray. We will now entertain any debate on the motion. Seeing none, do either of our movers have a closing?
Evan Ray, Side 22 AMS rep. I do not.
It's all right. I love you anyways. In that case, be it resolved that Council approve the changes to the Engineering Society Policy Manual, section beta.c.14 and gamma.a.2.1, as seen in appendix more people, to introduce an automation and process development team under the Director of Internal Processes. Moved by Evan Ray, seconded by Kaya Edwards. You may now vote. Motion passes. Moving on to last but most certainly not least, motion 16. Whereas the Director of Internal Processes is still evolving, and whereas the Director of Internal Processes needs help, be it resolved that Council approve the changes to Bylaw 8, Section B.14 in its first reading, as seen in Appendix Help Needed, to introduce an automation and process development team under the Director of Internal Processes. Moved by Evan, Fred, Fed, Ted, Brad, and Ted, Fed, Fred, Brad, Ray. Seconded by Kaya. Did he get it this time, Edwards? Do either of our movers have an opening?
Evan Ray, Site 22 AMS rep and incoming Director of Internal Processes. So same thing here. I'm just adding the automation and process development team to bylaw, as well as the organization of the Imaginist poster sale, because that was not in bylaw previously, even though it's under this portfolio.
Thank you, Representative / incoming Director Ray. We will now entertain debate on the motion. Seeing none, do you have a closing?
Evan Ray, Site 22 AMS rep. I do not.
All right, fantastic. Be it resolved, the Council approved the changes to Bylaw 8, Section B.14 in its first reading, as seen in Appendix Help Needed, to introduce an automation and process development team under the Director of Internal Processes, moved by Evan Ray, seconded by Kaya Edwards. You may now vote. Motion passes. I don't know if anyone has a good Frosh disownment lawyer on the books, but I'm in the business for one. With that being said, we will now move on to our executive reports, starting with birthday boy, President Spencer Lee.
Spencer, oh my God, Lee, EngSoc president. Yeah, so for my report, so OWEEK's done their hiring, they're doing event forms and getting those in. I had advisory board meetings. Formal is in the process of hiring. I guess that's more the incoming exec though. And they also presented to advisory board. Crusty board meeting, I guess between now and the last time we met, I've had a faculty board meeting, basically just a ton of meetings and transition stuff. In the next couple of weeks, more meetings as per usual, you know. Meeting with the dean and also continuing to transition the new exec and the new director team. Also, I'm just going to try to loop this in since I will only have to then say my name once, but I don't believe Roche is here, Director of External Relations. And I was going to have to stand up to give his and say my name again. But if you have any questions about his report, just send him an email. I'm sure you guys can all read. So, yeah.
Thank you, birthday boy Lee. I hope you have many cakes and much beverage. Moving on to the Vice President of Operations, Mr. Benjamin Zurichni.
Ben Zurichni, Vice President of Operations. So yeah, kind of similar to Spencer, a lot of meetings lately. All of them are listed there. I had a meeting with the bookkeeper with Salma and Jay last week to discuss just any questions on month ends, T4s, which are being sent out right now. There's concerns with Ceridian payroll info and how that works when they're terminated early this year. So we're working that out with the bookkeeper. And then potentially switching back over to Sage 50 from QuickBooks. This is our accounting software for anyone who doesn't know. But that wouldn't be happening in my year. That'd be more of a recommendation for the new exec, if anything. Mostly something that the bookkeeper recommended. Other than that, just payments, e-transfers, mail, everything, like same thing I say every report, organizing T4s with Jay and transitioning Ben. And over the next 2 weeks, Salma and I are going to try and continue working on the review engagement. Like every report takes a long time, likely won't be finished all the years that we have to catch up on, but hopefully a couple of them will be done. And then more meetings, continuing to transition Ben. Actually met with each lower today and during our weekly meetings and had a long discussion about what happened in our year. So that was good. And yeah, helping Salma with updating the website with past budgets, just for people who have been asking about that. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Vice President Zurichni. Glad to see we're still operational. Moving on to Vice President of Student Affairs, Kosh-Fitsialis, whom I believe can't make it tonight.
Yeah, she could make it.
Either of y'all want to take this one? In that case, I'm going to assume it's all in the report, I suppose, and we'll go from there in 2 weeks from now. Moving on to our fabulous director reports. First and foremost, we have our Director of Academics, Director Nick Arnott.
Hello, Director of Academics Nick Arnott. Lovely to see you all. On the academic side of things have been rolling pretty smoothly. EngSoc has been pounding out those workshops and tutorials as they do so well, and continuing to prepare to do more of that throughout the remainder of the semester. Icons have exciting news in that they're open and operational up in Mitchell Hall. So if you need to get out of your cramped little room, go book a table at Mitchell, enjoy some space. In terms of the bed funds, you just heard all about them. They presented and you approved their purchases. So thank you for that. And thank you to the team for all of their fantastic work. On the advocacy side of things, fairly quiet, primarily been working on transitioning the incoming director. Congratulations to Alexa. She can't be here right now because she's doing so much hiring, On that note, there are more positions open. So if you're interested in being the next bedfund hand manager or some other funky stuff like EngSoc's assistant managers, go check out Dash. Apps are up there, and we'd love to have you. Otherwise, AMS Academics Caucus went well, and working on a cool little project with Julia Newcomb that I'm sure she would love to talk more about later. In the future, we'll be getting those approved purchases over to the people who actually spend the money, wrapping things up and doing more transitioning, helping out and keeping things smoothly. So that's me. Thank you all for listening. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Director Arnott. I hope you get better rewards than my scene points on that EngSoc credit card. Up next, we have our Director of Communications, Director Arham Chowdhury.
Arham Chowdhury, Director of Communications. Sorry, I forgot. I missed the report submitting deadline. Oops. But that doesn't mean I didn't do things. So some of the things, like actually my team's been super busy. So the graphic design team's working a lot. So some of the things they've done is like awards and then also making graphics for service head managers and then assistant head managers and outreach team and even more. So that part of the communications team is pretty busy. And then also I helped Leah Murray. Oh, sorry about the last name. I feel like I should know it, but it's okay. With promoting the design showcase, and I think that kind of went well. And I mean, it's tomorrow at 6, so I feel like Liam will talk about it, but I helped him with that, and that was kind of fun. And then also within the communications team, we're working on and planning 2 new initiatives, and the goals of these initiatives is to further increase student engagement. And so it's just introducing 2 new campaigns. One's called Engineers in Their Natural Habitat and one's called Hobby Share. And it's just so like Engineers in Their Natural Habitat is just like photos of people in their GPAs and stuff. But the point is like eventually to get people to also send that to us and then it'll be like a human interest campaign, and those do really well on social media. So that's kind of exciting because my team's planning that, and it's cool. And you'll probably see it if you're following EngSoc Instagram. And then also transitioning Ella, the incoming docom. That's kind of fun because she's the current photo manager. So yeah. And then for the next, hi Ella. And then for the next 2 weeks, also continuing to transition Ella, and then helping Selma update the finance portion of the website. And then also continuing those campaigns I talked about and like getting some out there. That's all.
Thank you to Director Chowdhury for being my forever Instagram inspiration. Don't worry, I don't know how to read anyways. Moving on, next to our Director of Clubs and Conferences, Director Brian Seo.
Hi, Council. Brian Seo, Director of Clubs and Conferences. Hope everyone enjoyed their well-deserved time off. Big shout out to the new director team, and a bigger shout out to my amazing Laura Adam, who has been thrust into the flames as Clubs and Conferences always does. Here's a few updates. I try to keep it brief as possible. We got our new merch, got names, fun, yay, maroon sweaters. Transitioning Adam and hiring CNC officers. QCBT hiring happened over reading week. QEC and QAs happened this past weekend, and a big shout out to Dell and Gab, who are the co-chairs, outgoing co-chairs of QAs. They were absolutely amazing, and it was an amazing experience throughout the week. Getting hiring prepared for CERC, QAs, QEC, QCTF, all the fun stuff. And hiring for QEC, QJEC, and QSC co-chairs will be happening sometime this week. And SEEK is also happening later this week, which is the Commerce and Engineering Environmental Conference. Over the next 2 weeks, it's just debriefing and data collection for conferences, talking with clubs and statics with clubs conference officers, and assisting Adam further should he need any assistance with anything. At this point, pretty much the portfolio is being run by Adam, and I'm just sitting back and collecting my checks. So yeah, old and washed up. This is so sad. Alexa, play that.
Thank you, Director CO, and also a brief congratulations on the new role within the AMS. Moving on to our Director of Design, Director Liam Murray.
Liam Murray, Director of Design. So last couple weeks, I've been transitioning Jen. Jen is the new Director of Design for next year, so congrats to her. Yeah, as Arham talked about, her and I met to advertise the showcase. So the design team showcase is going to be tomorrow at 6. If you want to come check it out, come see what it's all about. Yeah, it'll be fun. The teams are going to show off what they've done this year, and they get to win some money at the end. Yeah, so what else I've done? Policy changes. I mean, obviously you saw that. You listened to me talk about it earlier. And then, yeah, same thing, met with Craig, policy changes. So moving forward, going to keep transitioning Jen, make sure she gets accustomed to everything, kind of let her be a bit more in charge. The showcase is tomorrow, so that'll happen. And I have to get ready for the round table with the design teams, make sure they talk about how the year went and anything moving forward into the summer. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Director Murray. Some spirited policy writing in there as well, as we saw. Spencer briefly touched on the Director of External Relations. I don't know if we're going to get a full report on that one, but Director of External Relations, Roche Gunwardena.
Spencer. Lee, EngSoc president. Yeah, so I mean, I said it was pretty much written in there. One thing is that the Black Lives Matter patches are, up and stuff, and he's shipping them out. So I'd highly recommend. I mean, this is what it looks like. But if you're interested, they're cool. You can put them on your GPA. But yeah, everything else is read it in there.
Thank you, President Lee, and thank you, Director Gunawardena, for showing us what a healthy relation looks like externally. Moving on to our Director of Finance, Director Sabra Ibrahim.
Hello, Director of Finance, Salma Ibrahim. Hi, Council. So I've been transitioning Michael, who, first of all, congrats to the incoming ED team. this is so exciting. We're so old now, but Michael is awesome. We've been having some crazy exchanges of ideas, and he's going to be great. I have the utmost faith in him. He's awesome. So other than that, same old month ends, all that boring stuff. And I found the operational budgets for the past 3 to 4 years. Arham's going to help me update that soon, so it should be up in the next few days. The operational budget from last year, Ben has worked on over the summer, and he like tried to update as much as he could on the actuals, as he mentioned. So it's like the actuals are like kind of there, but not fully, but it's the best we could do for now. So I'll have all of them up soon. And then I worked on finalizing the policy that you guys saw today. Thank you for getting that through. And then over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to still be transitioning Michael, obviously, and maybe he'll start taking on some of my tasks as well. And then I'm finishing up some month ends that we need to get caught up on and sending them to our bookkeeper. And then depositing group sponsorship checks at the office. I actually did that yesterday, so that's done. And then reviewing group budgets. There's been a delay on that. Oops, sorry. So if you sent me your group budget and I didn't look at it, I'm sorry. I will look at it soon. But yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Ibrahim, and thank you for examining my very large transfer request to cover some Psi 2-1 jacket bars. Next up, our Director of First Year, Director Rain Tiesler.
Yeah, Rain Tiesler, Director of First Year. Apologies again for not sending in a report on time. That was my bad. Over these past 2 weeks, or even before the reading week, ran a discipline fair-ish event to connect upper years with first years. That went really well. It was really well received. If you were there, thank you for coming out. If you were there as a first year, I hope you enjoyed. We're going to be running a lot more events, sort of similar to that throughout the rest of the year. School got pretty busy, so I kind of had to move a little bit away and shift some of my attention, but I'm ready and raring to go for these next 2 weeks. Obviously, transitioning has started. Congratulations to the new ED team. Big round of applause. I'll be, over the next 2 weeks, I'll be sending a lot more emails to the first years, advertising things, getting them all notified and stuff. Hopefully continuing FREC events so that give them something to do and keep engaged. We'll be transitioning Milo or Alan, who is a sweetie. And yeah, some other things that I'm going to be adding is a Discord Dofi office hour, which I think is a good idea, where I'll just kind of sit for an hour in the Discord and talk to first years, because obviously we kind of lose that face-to-face, but I want to keep up something. Obviously, I mentioned chat events, and then some other stuff that I'll be going moving forward is some Psi 24 specific things such as year motto and exec bar, which will be very fun. But other than that, that's basically what first year looks like for me. I hope you all have a nice evening, and yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Tiesler. It's always a good evening if you're here. Moving on to our Director of Governance, Director Thomas Wright.
Thomas Wright, Director of Governance. Hey everybody, I hope you've all been having I hope you've all had a good February. So what I've been doing for the past month is a lot of awards work. We've been rolling out the nomination process, myself and Alex Fitzyalos. So shout out to her for all of her help and hard work on that. A lot of transitioning with Andrew De Silva, my wonderful lower, who is doing a great job so far. And discussing the plans for the endorsement policy with Julia, which you heard about early this evening. And for the next 2 weeks, it'll be more of the same, really. Big 2 things coming up in the governance portfolio are awards committee and AGM. So planning for both of those. And of course, keeping up the transition process with Andrew. So yeah, congratulations to all the new directors. You're all going to have a blast in these roles. Hopefully, I pray that you can all get to a point in your roles next year where you can see each other in person and like have office hours and see more tangible results of your work as a director. So yeah, good luck with it, and that'll do it for me.
Thank you, Director Wright. I've enjoyed our transition meetings, even if I haven't been invited to them. Moving on to the Director of Human Resources, Director Craig Maslin.
Hi, Craig Maslin, Director of Human Resources. So yeah, here's a quick update from the HR portfolio and what's been getting done. In summary, in the last couple weeks, it seems like not much has been getting done. I broke my arm over the reading week, and so I've been pretty out of commission and just getting back into things. So I guess, yeah, if you had sent some emails, I've gotten through all of them now, but I apologize for some extended wait times. We managed to launch a big feedback form, which like maybe you've seen cycling around some of the group chats. We're still kind of working on our marketing for it, but we've gotten like 50 or so responses already. I've done some insight perceptions of the Engineering Society, which will help the new team. I've put into place some new hiring initiatives, getting rid of or scrapping the old pre-hiring forms and moving to a Microsoft form kind of automated system, which we're now, moving forward with kind of like implementing and making people aware of. I gave the new director team hiring training last week, and hopefully they use that. Beginning some planning, we're going to run a winter training conference at the end of March, which will be good for all the new hires. And again, of course, starting my transition with Allison, who I believe is here right now. So congratulations. And to all of the new director team. Going forward into the future, ramping up stuff with the winter training conference and getting planning with that. Really getting my transition underway because poor Allison, I've had limited contacts while I've been dealing with this, but got a good plan going and I'm excited to get on with things. Collecting info on that feedback form and preparing a report for the new director team is the plan. And I made mention to that design team policy that was implemented today. So yeah, I hope everyone stays safe and enjoy your next few weeks.
Thank you, Director Maslin. I hope you can allocate some of those resources to healing your human. Moving on to our Director of Information Technology, Director Alex McKinnon.
Zurichni, Vice President of Operations. Alex couldn't make it to council, so I'll do his report. Things he's been doing over the break was continuing with IT documentation, repairing Dash during the hiring season, policy changes, which were just passed, and he began transitioning Zach. So also congrats to Zach. And over the next 2 weeks, he's going to be re-reviewing his portfolio's KPIs from his strategic plan because things have slowed down a little for the IT ops team just because they made such good changes in his year. There's less problems to deal with now, which is great. He's been updating his budget, adding a central EngSoc IT services page to the main EngSoc site, preparing fun IT statistics for AGM. And I talked to him today and it sounds like SDev presentations will be during the council after AGM. And he's going to continue transitioning Zach.
Thank you, Vice President Zurichni. Glad to hear the ones and zeros are indeed in order. Moving on to our Director of Internal Processes, Director Allison Wong.
Hi, Allison Wong, Director of Internal Processes. So over the past 2 weeks, I've completed my transition manual. I started having statics with my wonderful lower, Evan. He is very prepared and I'm very excited for what's to come with the position. And we are currently planning the EngSoc banquet. So I guess different from past years, we decided to go with a Microsoft form flow type of invitation guest list. So we're collecting emails currently. So we just did that. And over the next 2 weeks, we're continuing to plan for the banquet. And I'm going to continue transitioning Evan.
Thank you, Director Wong. Glad to see your lower already knows how to write an infuriating motion. Next up, we have our Director of Professional Development, Director Varnika Gupta.
Spencer. Lee. EngSoc President. Varnika has a class right now. sorry, that like throws off my train of thought every time I do that. So so basically last couple weeks, transitioning, she put out a feedback survey for PD stuff. And then they also had a couple workshops in the coming weeks, obviously transitioning. Big thing is, big thing is consulting week is coming up next week, I believe. And the other thing is, I believe she's working with the gender and eng panel, like I guess also Alex and like all the other directors and everyone else that's working on it. I believe she's going to be working on something for International Women's Day, which is also on March 8th. So stay tuned for that as well. But yeah, I hope that's the last time I'll have to do my nickname this council.
Thank you, President Lee. Moving on to our Director of Services, Director Andrew Kernerman.
Ben Zurichni, Vice President of Operations. I don't think Andrew's here, so I'll give his report. So over the last few weeks, he helped CEO to get jackets delivered and just sorting out minor logistical issues. Transitioning his lower, Delena, so congrats to Delena. And helping each service finish their transition manuals. And then over the next few weeks, he's going to be continuing with transition, working with each service to plan a summer transition for the next team and statics. And he wants that dog, apparently. So.
Thank you, Vice President Zurichni, for stepping in. And last but most certainly, well, Director of Social Issues, Julia Newcomb.
I just want to give President Lee the opportunity to read my report if he wants to. I'll take that as a no. So I'm super excited to have Jeevan as my lower. So congratulations to him for being hired as the new Director of Social Issues. Over break, my accessibility representative and I made an accessibility training for FC that went really, really well. And we're also planning to give that to the incoming director team in the coming weeks. Equity team is just finishing up our report on orientation week now, and so that'll be finished by the end of the week. Obviously, the endorsement presentation with Thomas, and now going forward, taking your guys' feedback and putting that into action with some policy, ideally. And then starting nominations for my team, because obviously the EngSoc award nominations are out, so nominate your people. Next little bit, regular meetings and some more transitioning stuff. I'm super hyped about this next one. As of ideally Monday, there will be take one, leave one menstrual products in 3 bathrooms in Mitchell. The family bathroom on the first floor, which is a gender neutral bathroom, and then the men's and women's rooms by the 100 and 200 class that you can reserve for dibs for studying. So that is super exciting. Sustainability Committee is doing really well with their climate action report. And so they're working away on that. Starting bursary committee transition. And then Nick and I have been talking about some academic advocacy that we can do about having better EDI representation and content in 100 and 200 classes. And that's it.
Thank you, Director Newcomb, for saving the world, or at least the Engineering Society. With that being said, we'll now move on to a question period for any of our executive director team. That's in the speaker's queue. Seeing none, we will now take a report from our faculty board group.
Peter Matthews, Senior Senator. I mean, I go to faculty board so I can give their report, unless would any of the, I know Miranda's not here yet, and obviously Nick was just elected, so he wasn't at the last faculty board meeting, but would the Sci 2-3 or Sci 2-4 faculty board reps here to give their report, or should I just give it?
I was there, but I just don't remember what happened. So you're better to give that than me.
Okay, I'll give the report then, even though I'm a senator. So basically, I guess the main thing we were discussing is the faculty was making adjustments to the number of credits for certain courses, and basically for some CEAB related reason, they had to reduce the number of engineering science academic units that were given to first years for APSC 100 this year because of the online learning format. So obviously we were a bit concerned about that, and we questioned the faculty extensively about that at faculty board, but there is no need to panic because our program was above the minimum number of academic units needed for CEAB accreditation. So even though the first years are getting a couple fewer of those units, it doesn't effectively makes no difference to them because they will all still get the number of engineering science academic units needed to get their degrees. And we also asked them about next year's dates for the fall term. Basically next year, there's going to be another week-long fall term break, and we, which is very nice, but also we were wondering if that would result in a shortening of orientation week, to which their response was that the dates aren't fully confirmed yet and that we should not interpret it as a reduction in the length of a week. And speaking as a senator, the academic dates also was part of the Senate meetings, and Senate also basically said the same thing. They said they're not reducing the length of a week specifically, then they're still consulting with student groups on how to make a week work with the longer fall term break. I believe that is everything.
Thank you, Senator Matthews, on behalf of our faculty board reps. Moving on, we will now take a report from our alma mater society reps.
Matthew Green, side 21 AMS rep. Nothing new to report.
Alrighty, moving on to our Senate report.
Jeremy Wynn, junior senator. So as Peter mentioned, next year we're going to have a week-long fall break again. They did this because they didn't really have time to assess what was going on, and they, with the online format, they thought it would just be better to give us the full week off. This means we're starting on September 1st again. On the Wednesday instead of a Monday, which is kind of weird. Actually, I don't even think it's weird, but yeah, if you guys want to check out when the actual sessional dates are for next year, they're on the Senate website. In other news, Senate is planning on demolishing SORB, which is the Orientation Week Review Committee, but they're going to replace it with a new committee called SORC. Basically, the idea here is that SORC will have not necessarily less power, but the focus of SORC is to ensure that all orientation weeks respect all policies in regards to O week. So yeah, Peter can correct me if I miss some of that stuff. In other Senate news, the principal got roasted pretty hard this past Senate because he is all talk and no action. He's been giving a lot of reports and very, very little actual things have been done in the university. So a lot of the senators have been pushing for him to actually start doing stuff instead of just using colorful words to say we're aware of the situation.
Peter Matthews, in regard to SORB and SORC, essentially, as I understand it, SORB had a sort of dual administrative, sort of governance, but then also they had to do some sort of administrative stuff on top of their governance stuff, and that SORC will just purely focus on governance, just to clarify in case anyone wasn't clear.
Thank you, Senators Matthew and Wen. We will now move on to an engineering review board report. If I can't see the participants, but I'm not sure if ERB chair is here. I don't believe that to be the case. So in that case, we will move on to the advisory board report. Andrew Vasla, chairman of the Engineering Society Advisory Board. Recently, there was the delivery of an EDI accessibility report to the orientation executives pertaining to the review that was conducted via student survey, as well as some independent consultations. We had a meeting where we discussed financial accessibility of certain services, among other topics, in respect to strategic planning for long-term operations. And then perhaps most interestingly for council, we do have hiring, quote unquote, for next year's board, currently operational. So the way this works is that you apply via Dash, you will be effectively given a screening conversation, and then pending approval, you will be nominated to run for the board at AMS, at AGM. This is an opportunity for any students with a particular passion for either involvement in finance, long-term strategic planning, or policy to really get involved at the high-level operations of the Engineering Society's service operations and long-term thematic strategies. I highly recommend everyone consider these positions, and please reach out to me should you have any questions on the topic. We will now move on to our discipline club reports. First off, we will have our ECE rep, after which we will say Zap.
Zap.
ECE.
Zap. Do we have an ECE rep or a student in ECE who has any idea of the ongoings? Seeing none, we will now move on to a report from our EngPhys discipline, after which we will say nerds. EngPhys.
Fizz.
Nerds.
Any EngPhys members? Matthew, I'm putting you on the spot here. What's EngPhys up to? No mas. Anyways, we will now move on to mechanical, after which we will say gears.
Mechanical.
Mechanical.
Gears.
Mechanical doesn't really have any updates this week. We haven't had too many meetings since reading week.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to our mining rep, after which we will say shafts.
Mining.
Shafts.
Shafts.
Well, this is a disappointing end. With that being said, we'll now move into our year reports. First and foremost, we will have Side 2-1, after which Side 2 Wonderwall, after which the rest of you will say old.
Side
2-1.
Old.
Old.
Hi, everyone. Kate Lappin, president of Side 21. So we should be having our charter uplink hopefully this week. I'm hoping for tomorrow so we can finally have orders for the yearbook, which is coming together, as well as our merch drop for grad sweaters and some fun bars. So I'll be happy when that's out the door. And then I think that's it for now. And then later on, we'll be tentatively planning an Iron Ring after party. Still ironing out a lot of the details for that, but that will be info coming soon. Thanks.
Thank you, President Lappin. I die a little bit every time they say old. Moving on, we will hear from Sai Chugga 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 Tutu.
I two.
Roush.
Julia Takamoto, Sai Tutu Prez. Our face masks are finally in and being delivered. They look like this. They're pretty cool. They're very comfy. They're 2-ply and made of 70% recycled materials, which is pretty cool. All the details are on our Insta if you want to get one. We've also got some stickers up right now. We've got our year crest. We've got one that looks like a Freck Mohawk ? And then this one that says Big Pole Energy. Check our Insta for details. And huge shout out to Lauren, our merch rep, for actually just walking around the student district to hand deliver all of the masks into people's mailboxes. Couldn't do it without her. Congrats to our new faculty board rep, Nick. Awesome to have a new member of the team. Upcoming, we're trying to plan a Family Feud style trivia night with Commerce, looking at like week 9. It's all going to be over Zoom. You're all welcome to join. We are looking to potentially donate to a local charity based on attendance, because what else will we use our budget for this year? So please show up, make us donate more money. And if you have any local charities that you think would be great to donate to, let us know. That's everything I've got.
Thank you, President Takamoto. Moving on to Sai, no one likes you when you're 23.
Sai 2, 3.
Frosh.
Rain Teasler, Director of First Year. I don't know if anyone from Side 23 is here, but I do have one thing to say. They'll be getting their long-awaited year exec bars very soon. So yeah, there's that. I don't really know what else is going on.
What do the bars say, Rain?
They say 2, 3 eens, like beans, but with the 3.
All right, moving on to side 2 for, after which we will all say Frosh.
Okay, I'll repeat side 2 for president.
Frosh.
Okay.
Frosh.
Okay, we've started selling our hoodies and we are working with you on that. And we had a side 2 for TikTok competition and the winners have been announced. We got 46,000 views on that. We had a movie night recently. We had a really good turnout on that too. Recently, we've elected a J section representative. And in the near future, we're possibly going to have either a second movie night or a trivia night. And we will be distributing prizes for the TikTok competition.
Thank you very much, President Paquette. Closing off, we have an opportunity for any statements and questions by members. I see newly elected Representative Merton is in the speaker's queue.
Hi, thank you, Speaker Vassila. Yeah, this is completely separate from, Nick Merton, faculty board representative, and also this is separate from my election to that position. I originally wanted to bring something forward as a general member before, I guess, my status on that changed about an hour ago. This is just briefly on the issue of design teams. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, I was a former president and co-founded a design team that was Queen's Vexy Robotics team. I originally wanted to bring up a few things when it became clear that, among other things, we weren't listed on the in policy as a design team, and there were a few other related things. Those have all been resolved. I'm not here to like complain about what different people are doing or anything like that. I'm also not here like formally on behalf of the team or the members. I just wanted to bring up a few issues that I think council would be interested in looking at based on my prior experience standing up and running a design team, because I wasn't the first person to have to do that, and I know won't be the last. Firstly, so yeah, I'm not trying to like denigrate on the hard work of anyone on the team. I just wanted to sort of start a conversation on the state of the relationship between EngSoc and its design teams to hopefully help in the future it achieve the goals of like giving everyone better extracurricular and technical and hands-on experience. So there's a couple of things. One sort of very specific and maybe easier thing is there appears to be a lack of a clear policy on design space allocation. That is like I've looked through the policy manual and all that, and the only thing I can find on design spaces is who's in charge of the compost in them. There's nothing on the actual allocation, and I'm not entirely sure where that falls in the sort of organizational processes, but having that properly documented would definitely benefit the teams, especially the newer teams like the one that I started, which aren't really in yet, who don't have a space, who don't have as much in the way of prior, built up network and relationship with EngSoc. And to that point, just more in general, I wanted to bring up what seems from the point of view of design teams and many of the current and former design team execs that I've talked to, sort of a lack of mutual understanding, like between design teams and EngSoc of how each works and what they do, what their needs are, who they need to talk to about things and all that. That I think trying to look into getting design teams execs more aware of how EngSoc works and making sure that vice versa is true as well would really benefit the teams and all the students on them who we're all trying to help out here. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Representative Merton. I may recommend reaching out to Director Murray. Would likely be your best point of contact on that, and appreciate you bringing that up as a point or a statement at this time. Unless anyone has any further statements or questions, I will now entertain a motion to close council.
Motion to close council.
Seconded.
All right, we need someone for the. I need someone to say. I need a name on that second.
Kate Lappin, President, Decide 21. Second.
Motion to close council, moved by Julia Takamoto, President Julia Takamoto, seconded by President Kate Lappin. You may now vote. Motion passes. Thank you all for sticking it out with us through a very long council, and please remember to nominate your team members for awards. Those nominations close, I believe, at the end of next week. And thank you very much. I hope that all of you and your loved ones are safe and well. Have a wonderful evening.